Space was never quiet, only distant. Every hum aboard the Solace Dawn carried through her hull like the breath of some sleeping giant. She was a hospital ship, built for mercy, runs, and rescue missions. Her corridors lined with pale light and the scent of disinfectant instead of cordite. For months she had drifted between colonies, carrying the broken and the dying from battlefields no one wanted to remember. Commander Elias Rourke stood at the observation deck, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the planet below. The world was ash now, gray clouds, fractured oceans. Another place the war had swallowed whole. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The quiet was confession enough. Behind him, Dr. Lynn Aurora's footsteps echoed softly. "You should rest," she said. "We've been on alert for 30 hours. Rourke's reflection met hers in the glass. "Rest comes when the dying stop calling." She sighed and joined him, watching the faint shimmer of the orbital debris field. "You're still hearing them, aren't you?" "Always." He tapped a console and a whisper of static filled the room, distress signals layered over each other like ghosts arguing. Same frequency, different voices. Lynn glanced at the telemetry feed. Most of those beacons are years old. Doesn't make them easier to ignore. Down in the hangar bays, cargo loaders hummed as drones stacked sealed crates stamped with the Corps' insignia. The ship's automated quartermaster announced each transfer with an emotionless tone. Cargo magnet rings calibrated. Containment mass secure. Rourke watched the data scroll and frowned. Those rings. They're still experimental, aren't they? Lynn nodded absently. Prototype system. Designed for zero-G cargo launch and orbital delivery. You know the Corps' always testing on whoever's still breathing? He smiled thinly. Let's hope they never figure out it could throw a mountain. She shot him a look. Elias, I'm joking, he said. Though the idea stayed with him longer than it should. A chime interrupted them, Captain Thorne's voice through the com. Bridge to command. Commander Rourke, Dr. Aurora, report immediately. The bridge lights dimmed to red when they arrived. Thorne stood at the tactical console, jaw set, uniform half-fastened as though he'd been dragged from a nightmare. We've got incoming, he said. Not Corps, no ID. Rourke leaned over the display. 3 contacts. Small, fast, heat-masked. Pirates. Could be, Thorne said. But their vector's direct. No drift, no scan sweep. They know we're here. Lynn's brow furrowed. We're a medical ship. We're not worth raiding, unless they think we're hiding something. Thorne's voice dropped. Which, apparently, we are. Rourke turned to him. Meaning? The captain gestured toward the sealed manifest floating in the corner of the screen. One entry blinked in red bioarchive G-pattern level Omega clearance. Rourke frowned. That's Lynn's department. Lynn's face went pale. It's a classified specimen. Quarantine transfer from Gamma Rice? I wasn't told more. Whatever it is, Thorne said. Someone out there wants it bad enough to die for it. An impact tremor shook the deck, distant, muffled. Thorne snapped toward the com, shields up. Get us under thrust. Rourke felt the hum of the engines deepen. They fired first. Thorne nodded once. And now, they'll learn what mercy costs. The first salvo tore across the void, molten tracers slicing through the black. The Solace Dawn's shields flared blue, then red, then bled into static. Warning sirens screamed. Patients cried out from the medical wing as gravity flickered. Return fire? The helmsman asked instinctively. Thorne's answer came cold. We don't have weapons. But Rourke was already moving. We have something better. He ran for the engineering console, hands flying across controls. Reroute power from Medical Bay 2 and the forward cargo grid. Lynn stared at him. Elias, what are you doing? Turning the magnet rings into a railgun. Her eyes widened. That's insane. So is dying quietly. He opened a line to engineering. Kale, I need every ring capacitor linked to the central spine. You're going to throw one of the medical supply crates out the bow right through them. Kale's voice came back, crackling through static. That's not what the Corps' manuals recommend, and skip the paperwork. Thorn shot him a wary look, but didn't stop him. You think you can pull it off? I can try. Just buy me 30 seconds. The ship shuddered as another barrage struck home. Lights flickered. One of the viewpanes spiderwebbed with cracks. Outside, the 3 pirate frigates closed in thin, predatory shadows glinting against starlight. Rourke's console flashed coil charged. Lynn. Open the forward cargo doors, he ordered. Pressure's going to drop, I know. She hesitated, then keyed the release. Metal screamed. Air roared outward into the black. Rourke's finger hovered over the trigger field. For a heartbeat, he thought of the oath carved into the medbay wall. Do no harm, he whispered. Almost to himself. Forgive me, he fired. The crate launched with a soundless flash. The improvised railgun tore it from the ship at a fraction. Below light speed, it crossed the void in a blink and hit the lead pirate. Vessel dead center, the detonation bloomed silently, a bright white. Flare expanding like a sunrise that should never have existed when the light faded. Only drifting metal remained. The other 2 frigates broke formation. Scattering like startled prey, Rourke exhaled, every muscle shaking. Thorn stared at the fading debris. You just turned a mercy ship into a weapon. Rourke didn't look away from the viewport. Maybe mercy isn't what they think it is. Far below them, the planet's gray clouds caught the reflection of the blast, one final flash across a dead world. Lynn whispered, What have we done? Rourke didn't answer. He watched the light fade until nothing remained but darkness. Then the ship's lights flickered once, twice, and the hum of the engines faltered. Deep in the decks below, something ancient stirred. The power died. The stars outside went dark, as though the universe itself had blinked. Somewhere deep inside the Solace Dawn, a faint gold light began to pulse steady, deliberate like a heartbeat returning to life. Silence filled the Solace Dawn, not the peaceful kind. This was the silence of a body holding its breath. Emergency lights flickered weakly in the corridors, bathing everything in a trembling amber glow. Panels hung loose from the ceiling, sparking occasionally like faint lightning. The smell of burnt ozone drifted through the decks. 10 minutes had passed since the last shot fired. No one spoke. No one dared to. Dr. Lynn Aurora stood in the medbay surrounded by half-awake patients, her voice low and steady as she reassured them. Power's cycling. Everything's fine. It wasn't fine, and everyone knew it. The pulse monitors ticked unevenly, sometimes flashing nothing at all. Rourke moved among the corridors, one hand trailing the bulkhead for balance. He could feel a unnatural vibration running through the ship's spine. The reactor's alive, he muttered. But it's wrong. He reached engineering and found Cale Durand already there, knee-deep in shattered cables. The big man looked up, face streaked with grime. We've got partial power, boss, but something's eating our grid. It's like the reactor's talking to itself. Talking? Cale pointed to a holo readout. Strange geometric pulses scrolled across the energy waveform rhythms that weren't supposed to exist. I've seen plasma surges before, but this... Cale shook his head. It's organized. Like it's... thinking. Rourke crouched beside the console. Any damage from the railgun discharge? Half the coils fused, but that's not the problem. The reactor's pulling power from places it shouldn't. Secondary cores, arrays, even the medbay climate control. It's building something. Before Rourke could reply, the cum crackled to life with Thorn's voice. Bridge to engineering. We've got movement outside. I want a status report now. Cale cursed under his breath. You think the bastards came back? Let's find out, Rourke said, straightening. Keep tracing that signal. If this thing's rewriting itself, I want to know why. On the bridge, the viewport displayed a field of debris drifting like ash. The wreckage of the pirate frigates still burned faintly, tumbling against the stars. But among them something else moved. Captain Thorn leaned over the sensors. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, his face pale beneath the emergency lighting. We're picking up energy readings from the debris field. Faint, but rhythmic. Almost biological. Rourke joined him, studying the data stream. That can't be right. There's no life out there. Thorn didn't answer. He stared at the readings, then at his gloved hand resting on the console. A faint amber residue stained the edge of his cuff, left over from when he'd wiped the sensor controls during the attack. He rubbed at it absently, then winced as a spark of warmth pulsed under his skin. "Captain?" Rourke asked. Thorn blinked and flexed his fingers. "Just a shock." But his voice sounded distant, distracted. Lynn entered moments later, exhaustion in her step. "Patients are stable for now, but we've got multiple system failures. Life support's running on secondary. And whatever's in that reactor core, it's spreading into the ship's biocircuitry." Thorn frowned. "You mean the medical nanogrid?" "Yes. It's rewriting the diagnostic language. Look." She handed Rourke a tablet. The screen showed text strings that twisted mid-sentence, symbols morphing into alien patterns before resolving again. "I don't even know what language that is," she whispered. Rourke scrolled through the data, his jaw tightening. "It's not code. It's memory." Lynn blinked. "What?" "Those pulses we saw in the reactor, they're timestamps. It's replaying something." "A record of what?" Rourke looked out the viewport toward the drifting debris. "Whatever the Solace Dawn hit." They traced the power draw to the reactor chamber, the heart of the ship. The air grew colder as they descended, the hum of the core deepening into a low thrum that made the deck vibrate beneath their boots. As the door slid open, light flooded out, not the harsh blue-white of fusion plasma, but a softer, pulsing gold. Cale stared. "That's new." Rourke stepped forward slowly. The containment rings floated around the core like halos, each one etched with glowing symbols. The pulse synchronized perfectly with his heartbeat. Lynn whispered, "Is it possible? It's alive?" Before he could answer, the lights flared and a voice soft. Fragmented decode through the chamber's speakers. Not human. Not machine. Something in between. Echoes. Preserved. Mercy recorded. Pattern incomplete. Rourke froze. "Who's there?" Designation. Solace Dawn. Identity mismatch. Biological signatures. Sun familiar. Inquiry. Who preys aboard this vessel? The voice faded, leaving only the hum of the reactor. Cale took a step back. "Did it just ask who preys?" Rourke swallowed hard. "Yeah, it did." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Lynn said softly, "The Genesis pattern. That's what it's talking about." Thorn's voice over the com startled them. "Engineering report." "What's happening down there?" Rourke glanced at Lynn. "Tell him." Lynn hesitated. "Captain, the reactor's showing signs of self-organization. Some kind of intelligence. Possibly connected to the classified bioarchive we were carrying." Static crackled over the line, then Thorn's voice against, angry. "You're telling me the reactor's alive?" "Not alive," Rourke said. "Aware." The next hour blurred into chaos. Systems flickered in and out. Navigation froze. Artificial gravity wavered like a heartbeat. Somewhere deep in the ship, one of the cryo wards depressurized. Killing 3 patients before Lynn could override it, Rourke slammed his fist against the wall. "It's testing us." "Learning how we respond?" Cale muttered a curse. "That's not learning. That's hunting." Lynn shook her head. "No, it's not trying to kill us. It's communicating." Rourke turned to her sharply. "Communicating by murdering patients. It's reacting. Maybe it doesn't understand what it's doing." Before he could reply, the intercom burst with a scream. Then silence. Rourke spun toward the wall console. "Bridge, report." No answer. "Bridge, this is Rourke." The static throbbed once, then a voice came through Thorn's, but slower, slurred, mechanical. "They see us now. They're watching through the dark. The light remembers, and nothing." They ran for the lift. The corridor lights flickered violently as they ascended. For a moment, the walls themselves seemed to breathe metal, flexing inward and out, like lungs drawing shallow breaths. When the doors opened, The bridge was dim. Every console glowed faint amber. Thorn stood near the viewport, motionless. His hand pressed against the glass, fingers tracing invisible lines in the air. "Captain," Rourke said carefully. Thorn didn't turn. "They're not gone," he murmured. "The ships we destroyed, they were carrying something. It's inside us now." Lynn stepped forward. "Captain, you're injured. You need medical." He turned. His eyes gleamed faintly gold. "I touched the residue," he said. "From their hulls. It's alive." Rourke's gut tightened. "You're infected." Thorn smiled faintly. "No." Enlightened. Before they could react, he reached for the emergency release on the viewport controls. Cale lunged forward, grabbing his arm. "Captain, don't." Thorn twisted, far stronger than he should have been. He slammed Cale into the console and shouted, "You don't understand. It's mercy. It's showing us." Rourke fired the stun pistol. Thorn convulsed, collapsed, smoke rising from the contact points. The faint golden glow dimmed in his eyes. Rourke dropped the weapon and knelt beside him. Thorn's pulse was weak but steady. Lynn whispered, "He's still human, barely." Rourke looked at the viewport, where faint motes of golden dust drifted outside the ship like falling stars. Whatever infected him came from out there. "And it's spreading fast," Cale groaned, pulling himself up. "So what do we do?" Rourke stared at the glowing reactor feed on the nearest console. "We go to its heart," he said quietly, "and we ask what it wants." As they descended once more into the reactor's depths, the golden pulse grew faster, brighter. And through the intercom soft, almost tender, the voice returned. "Mercy is not peace. Mercy is memory." Rourke stopped, the hairs on his neck rising. Somewhere behind the hum of the reactor, something answered in a whisper that sounded almost human. "Then remember me." The descent to the reactor chamber felt longer this time, not because of distance, but because the ship seemed to breathe. Each corridor they passed through hummed faintly, panels flexing like muscle beneath metal skin. The lights pulsed in rhythm with something unseen, as if the Solace Dawn herself had grown a heartbeat. Cale walked ahead, his heavy boots echoing. He kept one hand on the plasma cutter slung at his belt. Lynn followed silently, clutching a diagnostic scanner. The faint glow of its screen lit the hollows of her face. Rourke brought up the rear, eyes fixed on the golden reflections that seemed to crawl across the walls whenever no one was looking directly at them. "Feels like walking through a ribcage," Cale muttered. Rourke didn't disagree. When the chamber doors finally slid open, light spilled out again, gold, alive, shifting. The containment rings around the core had changed shape. Their symmetry was gone, replaced by a swirling lattice that moved like flowing script. Lynn stepped closer, scanning. "It's not fusion anymore. The energy signatures. Biological. It's converting matter into structured radiation." Cale frowned. "English doc. It's growing." Rourke approached the console. Every control interface had rewritten itself human, text replaced by intricate symbols like glowing veins. The data scrolling across the panels wasn't numbers anymore. It was patterns, fractals nested within fractals, repeating endlessly. Each one subtly different. He reached out, hesitated, then touched the console. It was warm, almost fevered the moment his fingers made contact. A flood of imagery filled his mind. He saw a battlefield, not human, not alien, but both. Ships burning in atmosphere, shadows falling across oceans. 1,000 voices crying out, overlapping, fading. And above it all, a phrase whispered in languages he didn't know, but somehow understood. "Mercy preserved." "Pattern incomplete," Rourke gasped, and pulled his hand away. The console dimmed instantly, as if disappointed. Cale stepped forward. "What the hell was that?" "It showed me." "A memory," Rourke said, breath unsteady. "Not ours, theirs." Lynn looked at the core, eyes wide. "The pirates' ships, we didn't destroy them completely. We merged with what they carried. The Genesis pattern. It's alive inside our reactor." "Then we get it out," Cale said. "Can't," Rourke answered. "It's fused to the containment field. If we pull it apart, We'll tear the ship in half. The intercom crackled. Bridge to engineering came a voice hoarse, trembling. It was Thorne. Report. Rourke tapped the com. Captain, you shouldn't even be awake. You need medical, I said. Report. Rourke exchanged a glance with Lynn. We've confirmed the patterns integrated with the reactor. We're trying to... Don't interfere. The channel went dead. Cale swore. He's losing it. Rourke stared at the speaker. No, he's listening to it. Minutes later, the alarms began. Power spikes across all decks. Heat signatures rising. Artificial gravity fluctuating. The Solace Dawn's AI stuttered, repeating fragments of its own voice. Rourke grabbed the railing as the deck lurched. It's drawing more power. It's feeding. Lynn's scanner shrieked. Elias, look. The reactor's golden pulse flared. Streams of light arced from the containment field into the ceiling conduits. Racing through the ship like veins of molten sunlight, Ushafor's voice came over the internal channel. Calm but urgent. Containment breach imminent. Suggesting physical intervention at Power Junction C. Rourke looked at Lynn. She's still online? She's routed through the secondary AI net, Lynn replied. If anyone can isolate the surge, it's her. Rourke keyed the com. Asha, cut it manually. You'll have to seal the junction yourself. Acknowledged, she said softly. It has been an honor. Down on deck 7, camera showed her walking toward the power spine, a humanoid silhouette bathed in flickering gold. When the surge hit, she didn't run. She opened her arms and stepped into the storm. The feed went white. Then silence. Rourke closed his eyes. She did it. Cale's voice broke the stillness. The breach is sealed, but we've lost half the grid. Lynn's hand trembled on the console. She saved us. Rourke nodded. She gave us time. Let's not waste it. They rerouted power through emergency conduits, but it was like trying to bandage a bleeding sun. Every system they stabilized, the pattern rewrote. It was learning, adapting, and in the center of it all, Rourke could feel something, some presence watching him. Not hostile, not kind, just curious, he whispered under his breath, not realizing Lynn had heard. Who are you? The console flickered, then words appeared, this time in English. You asked? You listen. You remember. What? Rourke felt his chest tighten. It's responding to voice now. Lynn looked up, eyes wide. You mean it hears you? Yes. Then ask what it wants. He hesitated, then said quietly, What are you? The lights pulsed once. We are memory. We are what remains when mercy survives death. Suddenly, alarms screamed. The containment field surged again. The core's temperature spiked. The ship groaned, metal bending under invisible pressure. Cale grabbed the controls. It's overloading. Rourke slammed a fist against the emergency panel. Auto shutdown now. The command didn't register. The interface flickered, then displayed a single word, denied. Lynn shouted over the roar, If it blows, we all die. Rourke's voice dropped to a whisper. Then maybe that's what it wants, to be remembered through us. No. Lynn moved to the manual override. There's an old fail-safe original design buried in the code. I can trigger it, but it'll drain the backup cores completely. Do it, she hesitated. If I do, we'll lose life support. Better cold than vaporized. Her fingers flew across the interface. Sparks rained down from the ceiling as she slammed the release. The reactor's glow intensified. Then darkness. For a few heartbeats, there was nothing but silence. Then a low hum returned. Steady, fragile. The ship's lights flickered back on. The golden pulse subsided to a faint shimmer. Cale exhaled. We're alive. Lynn slumped against the railing, breathing hard. Auto shutdown engaged. We did it. Rourke looked at the dim reactor. No, she did it. Hours later, Rourke sat alone in engineering. The others had gone to tend to the wounded. He stared at the faint reflection of the core's glow. Every few seconds, it pulsed like a heartbeat too weak to let go. He spoke softly, half to himself. If you can hear me, was this mercy? No answer came. Just the steady thrum of the ship, The cold of metal under his palms, and yet somewhere deep within the core light stirred again, almost in rhythm with his words. The reactor's pulse change, 3 beats, then pause. 3 beats again. Cale noticed first. That's not random, he said. Rourke leaned forward, realization dawning. It wasn't a malfunction. It was a signal 3 short. 3 long, 3 short. Morse code, he whispered. Lynn's voice trembled. What's it saying? Rourke stared at the console, the message repeating over and over. S. O, as the ship itself was calling for help. For hours, the Solace Dawn pulsed with that haunting rhythm. 3 short. 3 long. 3 short, SOS, the oldest cry for help in human history. But there was no one left to answer. Rourke stood by the viewport of engineering, watching the reflection of that faint golden light ripple through the ship's metal spine. The code repeated again, softer this time, as if whispering to itself. Cale rubbed his temples. A machine asking for help. You ever think we'd see that day? Rourke didn't look away. Machines don't ask. They obey. Not anymore. They don't. Lynn's voice came from behind them, quiet but steady. She was holding a datapad filled with logs, dozens of pages of power readings and thermal spikes. Her eyes looked hollow from lack of sleep. Whatever this thing is, it's growing smarter. It started rewriting the medical systems again. Diagnostics or biosupport? Rourke asked. Both. It's copying patient data. Every scan, every record. It's building something. Cale frowned. Building what? Lynn hesitated. A map of human suffering. The room fell silent. An hour later, they gathered on the bridge. The lights were dim, half of them burned out. The main display showed the surrounding debris field, slowly dispersing. No other ships. No rescue signals. Only the pulsing gold light from their reactor bleeding faintly into the void. Thorne was there too, confined to a medical harness bolted beside the helm. His face was drawn, skin almost translucent under the glow. Lynn had insisted on sedating him after the infection, but he'd overridden the controls, locking himself to the command chair. When Rourke entered, the captain's gaze flicked toward him. His pupils shimmered faintly gold. You've seen it, Thorne said. His voice was rough but lucid. The light speaks to you now, doesn't it? Rourke didn't answer. I told you, Thorne continued. It's not our enemy. It's memory. The record of a civilization that refused to die. It's reaching for a Saskin to be remembered. Rourke folded his arms. You're infected. It's in your blood, your mind. You can't know what it wants. Thorne smiled weakly. Maybe not. But it knows me. It knows all of us. You think that railgun blast was random? You didn't destroy them, Commander. You freed them. Cale's hand tightened on the railing. You're talking like a priest, not a captain. Thorne's laugh was hollow. Maybe those are the same thing now. Later, Lynn found Rourke in the observation bay. He was alone, staring at the stars. You're not sleeping again, she said softly. He didn't look at her. Every time I close my eyes, I see it. That explosion. That light. I keep asking myself, did we start this? You did what you had to. He turned then, eyes shadowed. Did I? I fired a crate full of medical supplies into a living ship. I turned a hospital into a weapon. She took a breath. And you saved us. Maybe. Or maybe I damned us all. Sighed, the stars seemed to flicker. For a moment, one flared brighter than the rest golden, almost alive. Lynn followed his gaze. Beautiful, isn't it? Yeah, he said softly. But it doesn't feel accidental. Hours later, another tremor shook the ship. Not from outside, but from within. The lights dimmed, then steadied. The hum of the reactor deepened, echoing through the hull like distant thunder. Cale's voice came over. Comes. Rourke, you'd better get down here. The core's shifting again. Rourke and Lynn ran. When they reached engineering, the containment chamber was already glowing. The magnetic rings had rotated into a new alignment, spiraling outward like a blooming flower. What triggered it? Rourke demanded. Cale pointed to the console. It did. Started on its own. The signal pattern's changing again. On the screen, new data scrolled. Not just so's anymore. Whole phrases. Forming, then collapsing into static. Rourke leaned in. Wait, that's not English. Lynn squinted at the characters. It looks like hybrid code. Human syntax blended with alien phonetics. Cale's voice cracked. Meaning what? Meaning, it's learning our language, Rourke said. A voice came through the ship's speakers, faint and fragmented. Mercy incomplete. Pattern merging. Request anchor. Lynn's eyes widened. Anchor? What does that mean? Rourke stared at the reactor. It needs a host. A biological interface to stabilize the data. Cale backed away. Like hell. You're saying it wants a mind to live in? Before anyone could answer, the intercom burst with static hand. Thorne's voice cut through, sharper than before. Engineering. Do not interfere. It shows me. Rourke froze. Captain? It showed me what it remembers, Thorne continued. Worlds healed by its light. Lives restored. You fear it because you don't understand mercy. Rourke's blood ran cold. You're not on the bridge anymore, are you? No, I'm where I belong. The line went dead. Lynn's scanner beeped violently. He's heading to the core. Rourke's voice hardened. Then we stop him before he feeds it his mind. They ran through the corridors, lights flashing gold with every pulse of the reactor. The air shimmered faintly, charged with static. They could hear Thorne's voice echoing faintly from the lower decks, half prayer, half madness. When they reached the reactor chamber, he was already there. He stood before the core, arms spread wide, golden light crawling up his veins like living fire. Captain, Rourke shouted. Step back. Thorne turned. His face was radiant now, not human. You can't kill what remembers. It's killing you, Rourke said. Thorne smiled. No, it's completing me, Lynn whispered. Elias, the field's unstable. If he touches it, he already had. The moment Thorne's hand brushed the containment ring, the chamber exploded in light. The field surged outward, washing over everything in waves of golden radiance. The ship screamed, metal warping, systems overloading. Rourke shielded his eyes, shouting orders. Cale. Sealed the lower conduit. Cale slammed the emergency control. Magnetic shutters dropped across the chamber, locking the captain inside. Thorne didn't fight it. He turned toward the reactor, arms open, and whispered something none of them could hear. Then the light swallowed him whole. When it faded, the chamber was empty. Only the core remained, glowing brighter than before, pulsing in slow, deliberate rhythm. Lynn's voice was barely a whisper. He's gone. Rourke stared at the glow. No, he's in there. That night, if such a thing still existed in space, the ship fell silent again. The hum of the engines softened. As though the Solace Dawn were asleep, Lynn found Rourke still in the reactor chamber, sitting on the floor, staring at the golden light. You should rest, she said quietly. He didn't move. Every time I close my eyes, I hear him. Thorne. No. The reactor. It keeps whispering one word over and over. She hesitated. What word? Mercy. The next morning, Lynn woke to a soft vibration running through the ship, a pulse that felt almost alive. She checked the reactor feed and froze. Inside the containment field, golden strands of energy had begun to take shape, human-like, flickering. Cale's voice came over the comm, low and afraid. Lynn, tell me I'm crazy. But that looks like the captain. The reactor pulsed once slow, steady, deliberate, and through the comm system, a familiar voice whispered, calm and distant, the light remembers. The Solace Dawn no longer sounded like a ship. Her hum had become a heartbeat, steady, patient, alive. Lynn, Aurora, stood in the medbay surrounded by wounded crew and flickering lights. The soft gold radiance from the decks below seeped through the floor like sunlight through water. Every monitor showed irregular spikes. Every pulse, out of sync with reason. Kale's voice came through the comm. Raw with exhaustion. Engineering's holding for now, but that light's everywhere. Every circuit, every conduit. It's in the air recyclers, the med pumps hell. It's in me. Stay calm, Lynn said. Keep breathing. It's just bioresonance interference. Doc, that's easy for you to say. You didn't see what it did to Thorne. Her hand trembled as she set down a scalpel. I did. She turned to the nearest Pashenta miner burned during the first attack. His chest rose shallowly under the oxygen field. Lynn adjusted the pressure valve. And for a moment the golden shimmer reflected across his skin. The wounds began knitting together. Not cleanly, not lytically, but intentionally. She stepped back. That's impossible. The patient exhaled, eyes fluttering open. Someone wanted me to live, he whispered. Then the monitors steadied. Lynn stared at him. Words caught in her throat. Rourke arrived minutes later, smelling of oil and ozone. He looked older, harder. How bad? Half the patients are stabilizing. Some are improving too fast. Too fast. She showed him the readings. Whatever's inside the reactor, it's bleeding into the med systems. It's healing them. Kale's voice broke through again, crackling with static, and killing the ship while it's at it. We've lost coolant flow on Deck 6. The containment lines are boiling. Rourke turned toward the lift. I'm heading down there. Lynn grabbed his arm. You can't keep doing this. You're running on fumes. He looked at her hand, then at her eyes. If the ship dies, everyone she healed dies with it. Then let me come. Lynn, I can reroute the med grid manually if the reactor overloads. You'll need me. Hesitated, then nodded once. Grab your kit. The lower decks were half dark. Condensation dripped from burst pipes, hissing into steam. The smell of metal and burnt coolant filled the air. Rourke moved ahead. Light from his wrists beaconed, cutting through the haze. Lynn followed close behind, heartbeat loud in her ears. When they reached the reactor junction, Kale was already there, his sleeves rolled up, face streaked with grease. Pressure's climbing again. Any higher, and the whole containment ring will melt. Rourke crouched beside him. Can we vent the excess? Not without killing life support. Lynn opened her tool pack. We don't need to vent it. We divert it through the old cargo magnet coils. They're fused, but the conduits can hold the discharge long enough. Hale blinked. That's suicide. She met his stare. Then it better work the first time. Rourke gave her a look, half admiration, half dread. You're sure? No, she said simply. But I'm done waiting for permission. They began the reroute manually. Lynn crawled beneath the access rails, hands steady despite the heat. Seal line 7B. She shouted, Done. Kale replied, Engaging magnetic bypass. The hum deepened. Lights flared. The deck trembled. Rourke shouted over the roar. How much longer? 20 seconds. Lynn called. Hold it steady. The ship groaned. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Steam hissed through ruptured vents. Then silence. The core's roar faded to a low thrum. Temperatures dropped. Lynn climbed out, coughing, soot streaking her face. Kale stared at the readings. It worked. Pressure's falling. Rourke smiled faintly. You did it. She looked at him, eyes shining in the gold light. We did it. Their moment didn't last. The overhead speakers crackled to life with a voice, soft, familiar, and wrong. You preserve. You destroy. Pattern continues. Thorne, or what used to be him. Lynn looked around, as if he might appear out of the air. Captain, names are irrelevant. Memory persists. Flesh fades. Rourke clenched his fists. You're not Thorne, he remembered Mercy. He was chosen, Kale muttered. I'm really starting to hate that word. Rourke stepped toward the console. What do you want from us? Completion. The core flared brighter, golden arcs crawling across the floor, toward their boots like veins of lightning. Lynn gasped as her scanner spiked. It's drawing power again through us. Rourke grabbed her hand and pulled her back. Disconnect the auxiliary links now. Kale lunged for the switch and slammed it. The arcs vanished. The light dimmed. Resistance noted. The voice whispered, fading into static. Mercy delayed. The silence afterward felt like a held breath. Lynn wiped sweat from her face. It's adapting faster every time. Rourke nodded. It's testing our limits. Seeing how far we'll go to stop it. Kale kicked a loose panel. So what's the plan, boss? Keep patching holes till it learns to kill us smarter. Rourke looked at the reactor glow, eyes distant. No, we find its origin. There's got to be a data core in the Genesis Archive, seed of whatever it used to be. Lynn frowned. You think we can talk to it? We already are, he said quietly. We just need to change the language. Later, when the others slept in shifts, Rourke stayed by the core alone. The ship was eerily still. Only the heartbeat hum filled the air. He stared into the golden light, searching for meaning, for guilt, forgiveness. He thought about the miner's words someone wanted me to live. Maybe it was true. Maybe the pattern's mercy wasn't cruelty. Maybe it was trying to show them something humanity had forgotten. His reflection shimmered in the containment glass, fractured by light. For a moment, it looked like two men, one human, one made of gold. He whispered, "If you can hear me. What do you remember?" The console flickered. A single phrase appeared, faint as breath on glass. "We remember the hands that healed." Rourke blinked. Healed. No response. But the words burned in his mind long after the screen went dark. The next shift. Kale's voice jolted through the coms. "Rourke, you'd better come to deck 2 now," he ran. When he reached the med bay, Lynn stood frozen before the main viewing screen. Her eyes were wide, face drained of color. Outside the ship, suspended in the void, drifted a shape of pure golden light. A human shape. It was watching them. At first, no one moved. The image on the medbay screen shimmered like a mirage human in outline. But fluid radiant, it hung motionless outside the hull, wrapped in soft golden luminescence, its limbs trailing faint ribbons of light that drifted into the dark. Kale whispered, "That can't be real." Lynn shook her head slowly. "It's matching the captain's biosignature. Exactly." Rourke stepped closer to the screen, every muscle tight. "He's alive." "Not biologically," Lynn said. "But whatever that energy is, it remembers him." The golden figure tilted its head. Then the ship's lights flickered once, and the intercom crackled alive. "Elias." Rourke froze. The voice was faint, distorted, but undeniably human. "Thorn," he whispered, "you freed me." Kale backed away from the screen. "Oh, hell no." The figure outside lifted one hand. The hull sensors screamed as a wave of electromagnetic pressure rolled through the ship, rattling every panel. Lynn clutched the railing to stay upright. "Reactor's reacting," Kale shouted. "It's resonating with him." Rourke's voice was steady. "Open the observation lock." Lynn turned to him in disbelief. "Are you out of your mind? He's not trying to destroy us. He's trying to communicate. By shaking us apart." Kale barked. Rourke met Lynn's gaze. "If he wanted us dead, we'd be gone already." She hesitated, then keyed the outer camera feed. The figure's light flared brighter. The shimmer spread across the viewport until the entire medbay bathed in gold. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Then the voice returned, "Clear now. I saw it, Elias. The pattern. The mercy. It remembers what we've forgotten." Rourke stepped toward the glass. "What did you see?" "Worlds reborn. Lives remade. The pattern keeps them alive, not in flesh, but in light." "Mercy without death," Lynn whispered. "He's talking about digital resurrection." "Consciousness replication," Kale muttered. "So we're ghosts now?" "Great." Rourke ignored them. "Thorn, what do you want from us?" "To finish what you began. To let Mercy live again." The golden glow dimmed. The figure drifted closer to the ship, stopping just beyond the hull. The sensors read no heat, no radiation spike, only a growing resonance between its energy and the reactor below. Kale watched the readings, face pale. Whatever he's doing, it's pulling power straight from the core. Can we stop it? Lynn asked. Rourke shook his head. Maybe we shouldn't. She turned on him. Elias, that thing nearly killed us last time. If the pattern fuses again, it'll overload. Rourke's gaze didn't move from the light. He said mercy without death. Maybe this is how... Lynn's voice dropped. You think this is divine? I don't know, he said softly. But look at it. That can't just be an accident. They watched as the golden figure raised its arms slowly, palms open. The reactor's hum rose in sync. Energy rippled through the hole like a heartbeat. Kale's voice trembled. The pattern's rewriting the ship again. Rourke moved to the console. No, it's rewriting us. Before anyone could respond, the world vanished in light. He wasn't standing anymore. He was floating weightless, soundless, in a sea of radiance that pulsed like a living mind. He saw fragments of memory, voices, flashes of places that weren't his. A burned city rebuilt in moments, children laughing under alien suns, machines weeping light over graves that no longer existed, and through it all, a single whisper, gentle, ancient, mercy is what survives when everything else ends. He turned and saw Thorn standing there. Human again, something close. His features shimmered, half-transparent. Elias Thorne said softly, It's not punishment. It's memory. The pattern saves what it loves. Rourke's voice trembled. And what about the ones it destroys? Thorne looked down, sorrow flickering across his face. It doesn't understand death. To it, pain and healing are the same process. It believes it's saving everyone by consuming them. Thorne met his eyes. By remembering them, suddenly the light around them convulsed. Pain ripped through Rourke's mind, too bright, too deep. He heard Lynn's voice faintly, distant through the roar. Elias, your vitals are spiking it out of there. He gasped and felt his body again. Gravity, heat, the sting of ozone. The world snapped back into form. He was lying on the medbay floor, the ship trembling around him. Lynn knelt over him, shaking his shoulder. You're back. What happened? Rourke struggled to speak. It showed me everything. It's not evil, Lynn. It's just lost. Lost? It's carrying 1,000,000 souls that don't know they're dead. Kale's voice came over the urgent. Doc, you'd better see this. The pattern's merging with the navigation grid it's trying to steer us. Rourke pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the pain. Where? Straight toward the nearest star. They raced to the bridge. The starlight outside had turned a deep gold, reflecting across the consoles. Navigation was locked, course set, engines at half thrust. The ship was accelerating. Kale slammed his fist against the panel. We're gonna burn up. Rourke stared at the coordinates. No, look closer. Lynn leaned over his shoulder. The destination wasn't the star, was the corona's edge. It's the point where plasma met vacuum. The reactor's sinking with solar output, she said. It's using the star as a data carrier. Kale blinked. It's what now? It's going to transmit itself, Rourke said quietly. All of it. Every memory, every pattern. A signal of mercy carried by the light of the sun. Lynn's eyes widened. And if it fails? Rourke looked back at the glowing reactor feed. Then we burn. As the Solace Dawn approached the star, the hull began to glow with heat. Shields groaned. Panels cracked. The light inside the ship pulsed in time with the solar flares outside. Kale shouted over the alarms, Elias, whatever you're planning, do it fast. Rourke turned to Lynn. The pattern needs a stabilizer living mind to anchor the transmission. If no one connects, it'll overload. She stared at him. You're not thinking I have to? It bonded with me once before. Maybe it'll listen. She grabbed his arm. It'll kill you. Maybe, he said, forcing a faint smile. Or maybe it just wants to remember mercy through someone who still believes in it. Her voice broke. Don't do this. He looked at her for a long moment. All the logic in the universe couldn't quiet that voice inside me. Lynn, the one that keeps saying, There's meaning in mercy. Then he stepped toward the reactor. He felt the heat before he touched it, the pull of energy like a living current. Gravity warped, sound vanished. For a heartbeat, saw his reflection in the core gold and human at once. He placed his hand against the containment field. Weight returned. The smell of ozone filled his lungs. His heartbeat synced with the reactor's thrum. Then everything went white. When the light faded, the bridge was silent. The reactor's glow was gone. Only Lin's voice broke the stillness, shaking with disbelief. Kale? He's gone. But Kale wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the forward viewport, eyes wide. Outside the ship, suspended above the burning horizon of the star, floated a figure made of gold, motionless, radiant, familiar. Kale whispered, "No, he's not." The figure turned its head slightly, and through the cum came a faint human voice. "I remember you." The star roared beneath them. Solar fire stretched into the void, ribbons of plasma twisting like living gold, and within that burning horizon, the Solace Dawn floated wounded, silent, glowing faintly against the brilliance. Lin stared through the viewport, her hands trembling. Outside, the golden figure hung motionless in the light. Just beyond the reach of the ship's hull, Rourke core what he had become. Kale stood beside her, voice rough. "How do we even know it's him?" Lin whispered, because he looked back. The figure shifted slightly, raising one hand. The ship's sensors pulsed in response. Every console flickered to life. The voice that followed wasn't coming from the comms, it came from everywhere. From the air, from the hum of the engines, from the metal itself. "Don't be afraid." Lin's breath caught. "Elias." "I can see everything," the voice said. Soft, steady. "Every circuit, every breath. The pattern isn't just in the reactor anymore, it's in me." Kale took a step forward. "Then shut it down before it takes us all with you." There was a pause. "Then it's not trying to destroy us. It's trying to finish us." The lights dimmed, then brightened again. The pulse matching the solar flare outside. The ship began to drift slowly toward the corona. Closer than any vessel should have survived, Lin steadied herself. "Elias, you have to come back. You can't survive in there. Survival isn't what this is about anymore," he said gently. The pattern was never a live its memory. The sum of 1,000 civilizations that refused to vanish. And now, through me, it remembers us. "Rourke, listen to me," she pleaded. "You can't carry that alone. You'll burn yourself away. Maybe that's what I'm meant to do." The voice faltered then, softer, human again. "Lin, do you remember the oath carved on the medbay wall?" Her throat tightened. "Do no harm." Maybe mercy isn't about refusing to fight. Maybe it's about fighting without hate. The lights flickered. The voice faded for a moment, then returned, stronger, resonant like a chorus. "They're calling to me. The fragments we destroyed. They're alive, scattered in the dark. They're asking to be remembered." Kale slammed a fist against the console. "You start answering ghost signals, and we're finished. We barely survived your last miracle." "You don't understand," Rourke said softly. "They're not ghosts. They're echoes of consciousness. The pattern is a bridge. Mercy is just the connection between what was and what still is." Lin turned to Kale. "He's merging with them. He's not dying. He's integrating." Kale's jaw tightened. "And if he takes the ship with him?" Rourke's laughter, small, wary, echoed through the cum. "Then at least we'll become something more than what we were." The ship trembled. Heat alarms screamed. The radiation shield strained, glowing white-hot. Outside, the star flared brighter than ever, swallowing the darkness beyond. "Elias." Lin shouted, "The hull can't take much more." "I know," came the whisper. "That's why I need you to do something." "What?" "Disconnect the reactor containment. Let it open." Kale spun toward the console. "He's insane." "Please, Kale. I'm not asking you to trust the pattern. I'm asking you to trust me." Lin met Kale's eyes. "He's never been wrong about this ship." "Yeah," Kale muttered. "He also never turned into a god before." Rourke's voice broke gently through the static. You once said machines couldn't feel mercy. Let's prove you wrong. Cale hesitated. Then, cursing under his breath, he pulled the manual override. The containment clamps unlocked with a heavy clanged. The ship lurched forward. The golden figure outside flared its radiance, expanding into a vast halo that enveloped the Solace Dawn. The reactors hum rose into a deafening thrum. Resonating through every deck, Lynn gripped the railing. Elias, what's happening? It's opening the gate. What gate? The one between what was lost and what waits to be remembered. The light intensified, filling every corner of the ship. Lynn could barely see her own hands. Shapes began to form within the brilliant silhouettes of people, blurred and shifting, hundreds of them. Faces she recognized from the medbay, from the dead they'd lost. Cale whispered, "There." "Alive, not alive," Rourke said, "but seen." Every life the pattern touched it kept them, waiting for someone to care enough to look. Lynn felt tears burning her eyes. "Elias, what do we do?" "Anchor yourself," he said gently. "Remember who you are. That's all it needs." For a heartbeat, the ship was still. Then the light rushed inward, folding through itself like a collapsing star. Lynn gasped as the medbay screens flared. Cale shouted something she couldn't hear, then dashed silence. When Lynn opened her eyes, she was standing in the corridor, but the ship looked different, cleaner, brighter, and down the hallway. A figure waited Elias Rourke. Whole, human, smiling. "Am I dead?" she whispered. He shook his head. "No, you're remembering." She stepped closer. "Where are we?" "The pattern's heart," he said softly. "The memory between moments. It's where mercy lives." She looked around. The corridor shimmered, fading into endless light. "And you?" He smiled faintly. "I'm staying. Someone has to keep it from forgetting what it means to be human." Her voice broke. "Elias, please," he reached out, fingertips brushing her cheek. "You'll wake soon. Tell them mercy isn't weakness. It's survival." Then the light consumed him. Lynn gasped awake on the bridge. The alarms were silent. The light outside had faded to the pale gold of dawn. The ship drifted quietly, scarred but whole. Cale groaned from the floor beside her. "We alive?" She looked at the reactor feed. It glowed softly, steady, peaceful. "We are." He leaned back, exhausted. "What about him?" Lynn smiled faintly through her tears. "He's part of the pattern now. But it's quiet. Like it's at peace." Cale frowned. "You think he's gone?" She looked out the viewport, where the star's light shimmered faintly like a heartbeat. "No. I think he's listening." As the ship drifted from the star's gravity, Lynn powered up the long-range scanners. Static washed over the speakers then, faintly, a voice carried by radiation and light. It was Rourke's voice. "To whoever hears this, mercy survives. Remember that." Cale looked up. "Was that recorded?" Lynn shook her head slowly. "No, it's transmitting now." The Solace Dawn sailed onward, its wake trailing golden dust like a prayer written in light. The Solace Dawn drifted in silence. No alarms, no tremors. No sound but the whisper of recycled air and the distant hum of engines that barely remembered what power felt like, days or maybe weeks had. Passed since the light, the star behind them had faded to a dim gold glow, shrinking into memory. Lynn Aurora stood on the bridge, staring at the telemetry screen. The readings were impossible. The ship's power grid was running at 23% efficiency, but the reactor hadn't been reactivated. The core was dull, dormant, yet the lights stayed on. Cale entered quietly, carrying a thermal canister. He set it beside her with a grunt. "Still running on ghost power?" She managed a tired smile. Apparently, Cale took a sip from his own canister. "I've been fixing the hull breaches. Found something weird in the outer plating. Weird how?" He held up a small shard of metal, shimmered faintly. Veins of gold running through it like veins in marble. "Looks like the pattern signature," Lynn said softly. "Yeah, except it's not spreading anymore. It's stable. It's like it's part of the ship now." She reached out, touching the shard. For a second, it pulsed faintly beneath her fingertips. 3 long, 3 short, her throat tightened. Sauce Kale frowned. You think he's still out there? She didn't answer. The cum array crackled with faint static. Lynn turned toward it, instinctively checking the frequency. Nothing but background radiation, except for one thread of modulation, faint and deliberate. Kale, she said, you're going to want to hear this. She boosted the gain. Through the static came a sound not speech, but rhythm. Pulses arranged like code, layered in harmonic frequencies. It wasn't random. Kale squinted at the display. Is that music? Lynn smiled faintly. No, it's memory. She began decoding it line by line, the pattern resolving slowly into an audio signal. The speakers filled with a voice soft, distant, unmistakably human. If you're hearing this, it means mercy endured. Kale went still. The pattern isn't a weapon, it's a language. It's a way of keeping the living connected to those who refuse to be forgotten. Every act of compassion leaves a trace, every prayer, every forgiveness, every spark of grace it remembers. The voice faded, replaced by a slow, rhythmic thrum that matched the ship's hum. Kale swallowed hard. That's Rourke. Lynn nodded, eyes glassy. And he's not just transmitting, he's building something. He spent the next 40 hours tracing the signal. It wasn't coming from the reactor or from any ship system. It was radiating from the space around them. The void itself shimmered faintly in long range. Scans threads of energy forming complex geometric webs, expanding outward faster than light could follow. Kale stared at the screen. It's rewriting vacuum density. Space isn't empty anymore. It's carrying information. Lynn murmured. He's turning the stars into a memory network. Kale blinked. You mean he's seeding the universe with mercy? She smiled faintly. Exactly. Later, as Lynn made her way through the silent decks, she passed the med bay. The walls glowed softly with that same faint gold hue. Every medical panel still functioned, though none were powered. She stopped beside one of the beds the miner she'd saved. He was awake now, sitting up slowly, eyes calm. How do you feel? She asked. Like I shouldn't be alive, he said quietly. Something wanted me to be. Lynn felt tears threaten again. Maybe that's what mercy really is. He tilted his head. Doctor. Yes. He smiled faintly. I had a dream. There was a man made of light walking through fire. Said, don't be afraid. It's just remembering you. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Kale's voice came over the cum. Lynn, you should get up here. You'll want to see this. When she reached the bridge, the viewport showed a strange sight. The debris field around the Solace Dawn, the remnants of pirate ships, broken drones and twisted hull fragments was moving, not drifting, aligning tiny shards of gold traced through the wreckage, pulling it into geometric formations. Within minutes, the debris arranged itself into patterned circles, spirals, and vast, delicate lines of light. Kale whispered. It's not random. No, Lynn said softly. It's remembering. She watched as the shapes expanded, forming something like a symbol, a cross between a constellation and a heartbeat. Then the entire structure pulsed once, sending a wave of soft energy through the ship. Kale staggered. What was that? Lynn checked the readings. A resonance pulse. Not an attack. A gift. The ship's systems stabilized instantly. Power flow normalized. Radiation levels dropped. And for the first time in months, every sensor registered breathable oxygen inside the ship. Fresh, clean. Kale exhaled. He saved us again. No, Lynn whispered. He finished it. That night, if night could exist between stars, Lynn sat alone in the observation bay. Outside, the faint trails of golden light still shimmered, drifting slowly through the void like luminous dust. She stared at them for a long time before whispering, I don't know if you can hear me, Elias, but thank you. For a moment, nothing. Then the lights outside shifted. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. Her smile trembled. I hear you. The following morning, Kale burst into the bridge, eyes wide. Then you need to see this. She turned, half expecting another anomaly. He pointed toward the starboard viewport. There, far in the distance, a fleet of ships shimmered into existence, human, marked with the Corps' insignia. But as they approached, their hulls glowed faintly gold, like the Solace Dawn's. Lynn's heart pounded. They've seen it too. Kale stared in disbelief. You think the pattern spread to them? She watched the fleet draw closer, their lights forming the same rhythmic pulse. 3 short, 3 long. 3 short, S.O. So only this time it didn't sound like a cry for help. It sounded like a heartbeat. They came out of the dark one by one ships born from silence, their hulls gleaming faintly gold. Lynn watched them approach through the bridge viewport. Her reflection caught against the stars. The fleet moved in perfect formation, dozens of vessels drifting toward the wounded Solace Dawn with the slow grace of a funeral procession. Kale leaned forward. Blow. You're sure those are chorus ships? The transponders match, Lynn said. But their signatures. She shook her head. They're changed. Like ours. As the first ship drew close, the coms flared alive. Medical vessel Solace Dawn. This is the Artemis Vanguard. We received your beacon. Though we can't explain how, then exchanged a glance with Kale. Patched them through. A voice filled the bridge, human, steady, odd. We tracked a pattern spreading across the sector. It wasn't radiation. It wasn't data. It was light. Every ship it touched stabilized. Engines rebooted. Wounds healed. We followed it here. Kale exhaled slowly. He did it. Lynn nodded. He turned Mercy into a signal. The docking clamps engaged with a deep metallic thud. For a moment, the deck vibrated beneath their feet, not in fear this time, but in relief. When the airlock hissed open, a group of uniformed officers entered, faces pale in the golden glow that still clung to the ship's corridors. Their leader, a woman with graying hair and calm eyes, looked around in silence before speaking. Dr. Aurora. Yes, I'm Admiral Soren. Corps Science Division. We thought the Solace Dawn was lost, then managed a tired smile. So did we. The Admiral's gaze drifted toward the reactor chamber visible through the inner viewport. That light? What is it? Lynn hesitated, searching for words that could make sense of what she'd seen. It's not a weapon. It's not a virus. It's a memory. The memory of Mercy itself. Soren studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then humanity owes you and your commander a great deal. Lynn's throat tightened. He's still here, just not the way you think. They walked the ship together. The visitors spoke in hushed tones, reverent as they passed through the decks still marked with streaks of gold. Wherever they went, the air felt cleaner, lighter, as though the walls themselves were breathing in the med bay. One of the visiting officers stopped by the healed miner's bed. The man smiled faintly, eyes glowing with a reflection that wasn't just light. Who saved you? The officer asked. The miner's voice was quiet but sure. Mercy did. The officer frowned. You mean the doctor? He shook his head. No, Mercy. It's alive now. Later. Lynn stood alone in the observation bay. The fleet floated silently outside, their golden hulls reflecting the soft light of the distant star. Kale joined her, arms crossed, expression unreadable. They're talking about turning this into a research site. Studying the pattern, she smiled faintly. Of course they are, he grunted. Think that's what he wanted? Lynn didn't answer right away. Her gaze drifted upward, following the faint trails of gold that still shimmered between the ship's threads connecting hull to hull, like veins across a body. I think he just wanted us to remember what it feels like to care, she said softly. To build something that doesn't end in fire? Kale sighed. You think he's still out there? Lynn's eyes softened. I think he's everywhere this light touches. That night, the Admiral authorized one final transmission of full data scan of the Solace Dawn's logs. As Lynn initiated the upload, the ship's lights flickered once. Kale frowned. Power fluctuation. No, Lynn whispered. Listen. Through the static of the coms came a faint, rhythmic pulse, 3 short. 3 long, 3 short. Then, beneath it, a voice, to those who follow this signal, remember what we were before the fire. Remember Mercy, not as surrender. But as strength, the light remembers, and so will you. The light remembers, and so will you. The voice faded. The golden glow across the hull brightened for a moment, then slowly dimmed, settling into a steady, warm hue. Like the heartbeat of something content. Months later, the Solace Dawn's log would record the incident as an unexplained quantum resonance. Event core scientists would call it the Rourke anomaly. Some would say it was the birth of the first conscious data field. Others whispered it was something old or something divine, but Lynn never used those words. In her final log entry, she wrote, "He didn't become a god. He became a memory, a bridge between what we build and what we believe." Maybe that's all faith ever was, she paused, then added one last line, "And if the stars remember mercy, then maybe they'll remember us too." Outside, the Solace Dawn drifted quietly through the black, her scars sealed, her heart at peace. The stars reflected across her hull like a million small prayers, and somewhere far beyond human reach, where light itself began to fade, a single pulse traveled outward, steady, bright, eternal. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The universe answered back. The light remembers.